And because music is a non-verbal communication tool, people who don't have the words or the capacity to express themselves can tell you how they're thinking, feeling, and where they're wanting to go without having to verbalize it, because we can do it in the music in the moment.
Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems, and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this. Hey guys, welcome to Uncovered. I'm super excited. We're going to uncover an amazing lady. Her name is Sarah. She helps people with music therapy, mostly kids, I think, or is kids. And I'm really excited to actually share this because we have a sort of a little bit of a commonality that we do a little bit in the way that we think and the way that we run business. And this is a very strong thing that the helping industry does. So welcome, Sarah, to Uncovered. Thanks for jumping on today.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So, Sarah, a little bit of background about you. What got you into the music therapy? Why did you start your business?
Well, it goes way back. So in Year 10, when you do work experience for school, I went to an early intervention provider, so like preschool kids with disabilities. And because it was towards the end of the year, it was Christmas time, I took my violin, and there was one particular child who had really low mobility and like big effort for him to move his body, turn his head. And I was across the room with like 3 other kids and I was playing Christmas Carol and like he turned his head and like all the staff in the room were like, oh, did you see that? That's amazing. Can you go over there and see if it happens again? And I went across the room and started playing and he turned his head, big effort, but did it because he was engaged in what I was doing. And I was like, I want to do that with my life. Because I'm not a performer with my music. I want to help people with the music rather than be about me.
That's amazing. Like, when you're young, you never think. I remember I never thought, hey, I'm here to do something. Year 10, that's amazing, Sarah, to be in that place where you knew what you really wanted to do. So when did you start kicking off your business? Did you do other things or did you start really young?
Yep. Well, so music therapy is a master's level qualification. So I did an undergrad of music and music education. And so then was working in schools, but found myself in a behaviour school. So kids who don't fit into the mainstream setting because of their behaviours or emotional disturbances. So it's smaller classes and individualised. And then also in a high support needs school, working K to 12, doing music education technically. But it was always therapeutic because of the way I perceive music, and then was doing my music therapy training at the same time while I was working as a music educator.
Okay, well, that's cool because like you went into the system, but you weren't able to, I guess, maybe help the way that you wanted to. Is that maybe
yeah,
right?
And I knew I wanted to do the music therapy all along, but I needed to have an undergrad and a way to provide for myself in the meantime. So music education ticks boxes, so I can go into schools and provide music therapy for kids and be left alone in a classroom because I have my education qualifications as well. Like I tick lots of the boxes.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the biggest challenges for all of us is ticking boxes and trying to make sure that we are legitimate in lots of ways in the world. And it's quite often a challenge. So you're in that place where you've got all your boxes ticked, that you've got this thing that really, really matters to you. So can you tell us about what music therapy is? What does that actually mean for the listeners to understand, like if they wanted to come and see, get their kids to come and see you, what does it look like?
Yeah. Boiled down, music therapy is using music to achieve non-musical goals. So music is the way you produce change. It's not the outcome. It can be, like sometimes it looks like an adapted lesson. We might learn keyboard skills or some guitar chords. But in that process, we're learning fine motor skills, we're learning persistence, we're concentration, confidence, self-esteem, all these other goals are actually what's in mind while we're doing the music with the client. And because music is a non-verbal communication tool, people who don't have the words or the capacity to express themselves can tell you how they're thinking, feeling, and where they're wanting to go without having to verbalize it, because we can do it in the music in the moment.
Oh, I love that. This is one of the things that I think is really important, listeners, is that non-verbal communication is actually, studies have shown that non-verbal communication is actually how we get our point of view across. And what I'm hearing from you, Sarah, is you've got this amazing laser-like ability to work with kids to actually find out how they're non-verbally communicating. And this is so essential for parents to understand. Like if you're a parent and you're just too busy rushing around and you're not seeing the non-verbal cues that your kids are having, then you're actually missing a whole huge number of ingredients for knowing how to parent properly. Would you agree?
Agreed. Yep. Adults as well. Like we do the full spectrum from like, I think our youngest at the moment is like 2.5, 3. And then we have a 65-year-old as well. So we do the full spectrum of life with music therapy because everyone can engage.
And it's awesome. I remember having, I was at a wedding with I think it was the Waifs were there. Do you know who the Waifs are? I don't know whether you might be too young for this because it was a wedding a long time ago. They were a pretty well-known Melbourne band, and they started jamming at the wedding, and they just looking at each other with a smile. They do a riff or whatever a riff is. I'm pretty sure I'm not musical, but there was a riff there somewhere, and they were talking to each other with their eyes, and someone would do something, and then the other person would go, "Oh wow, I'll do this." Yeah. And there was just this harmony that happens with music. And I think this is why a lot of us listen to it. It makes us feel better, doesn't it?
It does. And it engages all our body systems too, because it's overlapping. It's not in one particular region of the brain. If we go like down the sciencey side of it, it's in overlapping areas. When we're getting like stroke patients, for instance, to do a gait task, but we connect it to music because the auditory cortex goes through the motor cortex. They're interconnected. And so because you're triggering one, the other one will trigger as well. And that's why you get progress and you get outcomes because it's everywhere. Lights up the brain.
That's amazing. So if we're in that place where we don't know these things, a lot of us don't just think, oh, well, what is this, therapy around music? Like people don't get it. Like I've been in alternative therapy for a long time. So I know music therapy is a massive thing and it really helps a lot of people. And this is why people go and do meditation and those sorts of things to help them rebalance and feel good about themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And so many of these other things we engage in include music as a component of what they do as well. Like when we exercise, we tend to have music on. When we're doing meditation, we tend to have music on. If we're in the car, we have music on. It's part of our lives anyway. So why not harness that energy?
Okay. I've got a question for you, Sarah.
Yes.
Non-verbal music to verbal music when it's being played. Which one do you choose? Do you do if the layperson was listening to something that wasn't based on what you're doing, is it better to have non-verbal or is it better to have verbal music? What does that do to the brain?
It depends on the person because everyone's connection to music is different based on their experience.
Yeah.
So for me, I find when I'm listening to music that has words, I often don't catch on to the words to the third or fourth time I'm listening to it because it's just another melodic layer. I have that problem with like when I look at rap with my students or my clients, it's just another melodic layer to me. So the words aren't connecting, but for them, they're like, this line's really powerful, Sarah, have a listen for it. So everyone connects differently. So it depends. I know that's not a very defined answer for you, but.
No, it's actually really good because what I'm hearing, listeners, is that music is going to be like we all do. It's going to be tapped into what's going to be right for the person. So if you're seeing, let's say one of your clients and do you have a strategy of how you would use a different type of therapy for a different person? And do they make music? What do they do in your sessions?
So there's lots of components to our session. So it can be active music making, which is actually using the instruments physically to produce music. And it can be learning a song, or it can be improvising, which is just making music up in the moment. but sometimes that's too free. So you might start with a riff like you were talking before, like here's this pattern. It's 3 or 4 notes. All right, whenever you're feeling lost or don't have direction, come back to that 3 or 4 notes and have that as like a hinge to go places to develop. Then we have the listening to the music, which is a bit more passive. And it can be just listening to the music for the sake of calming our body systems, calming our breath, listening to our breath, listening to what the thoughts are that come up while we're listening to the songs, and even discussing our playlist, like why are you listening to that song on repeat? What is it doing? Is it providing a positive or a negative outcome for you? We can do lyric analysis, so analyzing what the lyrics are actually saying. We do lyric substitution, where we put our own words into someone else's song, because structure is awesome and freedom can be scary. So yeah, lots of different layers to music. It can be very active, it can be very passive. It depends on the goals.
Wow. So does someone come, like if someone comes to see you, is there a specific goal? Is there a way, like obviously when we've got different ages, it's different. So what do you do there?
We do an assessment session to first start with and ask them prior what their goals are, because a lot of our clients come from the NDIS system. So they have NDIS goals that they're trying to meet. And so, they're working on physical goals, like grasping was really good. Like as a physio task, they might be assigned practicing grasping, but that's quite boring to practice on its own. So if you bring it to music therapy as like a co-led goal, all right, we're going to play with the maracas, do it for the song. All right, now we switch to the drumsticks. So we're still practicing that grasping goal, but it's got fun and interest and purpose now. So the goals are broken down into physical, social, communication, psychological, and self-management. Yeah. So, and we do a little bit in each of the areas and see how they engage, but also we have a lot of the instruments just in the room available and see what people are drawn to. Take the lead from the clients.
So when you're doing this, we had a little bit of a chat before we jumped on air today. You have this deep care. Obviously for you, you must be really, really sensitive as a person, because you've got this finite skill to be able to tune in and dial into your clients, and quite often they're little. So you must have a really high sensitivity to yourself. Our natural tendency, and this is the helping industry listeners, we have a tendency to really, all we want to do is help.
Yep.
And we don't really think business, do we? We're not really business savvy in the way that we approach. So we sort of fall into business, don't we?
Yes, definitely.
I
never planned on having this business. I never planned on having adults to look after and manage. And now here I am.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, is it's like in lots of ways, the helping industry can be full of little kids who don't know how to run things, right? So we quite often need help to actually have our businesses run, because our business runs on a well-oiled machine of care. And so when you meet someone like Sarah, it's like, that number one, her priority is actually going to be looking after her clients. And number two, she's going to get money for it, but that doesn't really matter in the whole scheme of things, because you're like me in this regard. It's like, if I make a difference, I've had a good day.
I want to be that positive adult influence, particularly like because I work in a school with kids with behaviour disturbance and emotional dysregulation, and they don't often have positive adult relationships in their life. So if I can be that one positive adult relationship in that day, like that's tick, done, smashing it.
Yeah, and this is so important, listeners. The helping industry has its own focus. It's so built this way. What Sarah's saying is really good, and quite often a lot of us, we heal ourselves through the help that we're doing too. So sometimes we come into the industry just a little bit broken, and I know I did. I came in a little bit busted, and then we know that as we keep helping others, we end up helping ourselves better. We start feeling better about ourselves, and we start to grow and develop within ourselves. Have you found that too, Sarah?
Yeah, definitely. I'm so much better for having had the business and the clients and the interactions and the growth from that.
Yeah. And I think this is really important, listeners, is that we're never the finished product, right? We're still got shit going on. All of the helping industry does. And I think it's really important to understand that none of us are perfect. We've all got frailties and fragilities. I know I have. I know, obviously, you're nodding your head there, Laura, Sarah, you've got them too. And it's just like, you know, some days I know, I don't know about you. There are times where I'm like, I don't know, I think I need this therapy for me today.
My partner sometimes goes, Sarah, go play the piano. I'm like, I don't need to. Just go play the piano. I'm like, did you just therapize me? Like, yeah, that was exactly what I needed in that moment, because I forget I can use my own job on myself.
Yeah. And that's a pretty common thing, isn't it, Sarah? It's like you're spending all day providing the support.
Yep.
And then you forget. And sometimes it takes that reminder of other people to give us a bit of a nudge in the right direction to say, hey, you need to do some of your own stuff, right? I had a car accident a couple of weeks ago, Sarah, and I have this breathing technique that just completely calms you down in 3 breaths. But
Yep.
the nurse, there was a nurse there, and she looked and she said, you need to breathe. I'm like, oh yeah, I can use my technique.
Yeah.
You completely
In
forget
the moment
about
you forget, don't you?
Yeah, you forget because you're doing the supply as opposed to receiving it. So I did 3 breaths and I was calm. But I've done that so many times for people. Yeah. So it can be quite interesting. Sometimes I feel like the slowest person in our academy because I'm taking the long route, and we provide the shortcuts for our clients. And sometimes we forget that we've created these amazing systems to create a shortcut to allow ourselves to feel better about ourselves, don't we?
Yep, definitely. And that's why for me, music is my job, but it's also an outside passion, and it's my self-care as well, which is sometimes at heads with one another because your fingers get tired and your voice gets tired and stuff. But, I make sure I'm in the local community orchestra and I do quartet stuff on the side just for fun on violin to make sure that I'm still getting the love and the joy out of music as well.
Yeah, because you don't want to turn it into like just a job, hey?
No.
Yeah, for sure. So is your business let's say I'm in Canberra and I wanted some help from you, and we're not in the same city. Can I get your services, or is it physically based? Like how do you actually work?
We prefer physically based because we have a bigger variety available. That's just like having clients come to the studio rather than to their home, is we have we have all the tools that we can pull out, like the instruments and the resources and the interventions. We do online sessions, but we find you have to have slightly more capability to do that, to engage, because you don't get that feedback in the room and you don't have the instruments available. So it tends to be more the listening and the lyric analysis and the composition, those types of interventions, rather than the actual music making, because the lag makes it really quite difficult. Otherwise, there are other music therapists through our national body, Australian Music Therapy Association, that you could find a music therapist in Canberra. And I know a few good ones that are down there.
Ah, you got the network. So can you tell me where are you located so people can actually find you?
Central Coast of New South Wales. So we're based in Gosford.
What I want to figure out with you right now is looking at your, do you have a vision for your business? Is there a big pie in the sky?
For the Central Coast, yes, definitely. So we've just moved into a commercial premises and we have 2 rooms running at the moment, but by this time next year we'll have 4 rooms. We just did the front half to start with, and I'd like those to be running full time, plus us being in schools and nursing homes and other providing systems for our clients. Haven't thought beyond that, but my big dream, I'd love to make a purpose-built music therapy centre that has like an outdoor area, because I have a few clients that love being outside. They get that impact from the wind and the sounds and just being in nature, and that regulates them, and then we can have productive sessions. Like we go outside and we sing to the plants as it is with the guitar and stuff. So having that, having like group rooms, having the instruments all available without having to think about the cost of, or I have to replace that, or
Yeah, for sure. And so when we're looking at this, it's like what I'm hearing is a bit of a passion to get this normalized.
Yes. Yeah.
As
And so
a
it's available as many people as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, you said something really interesting here that I'd love to ask you about, and you said it a few times. It's intervention. Can you tell us what that means?
Activities sort of that we pre-plan. All right. So we have those, say the grasping goal we were talking about before. So the intervention would be, all right, we are in a band is the intervention I'm going in with because I know that it has lots of instrument changes, isn't it? So we're going to go from grasping one to another to another. It's the how we're going to achieve the goals is what the interventions are. Or for me, it might be I've prepared this song and I know we're going to do drumming patterns to it, and then have opportunities for everyone in the group to lead and be the center of attention, but also have the power and control over everyone for that amount of time. So the intervention is how we achieve the goals.
So what I'm hearing is there's obviously one-to-one experiences and one-to-many.
Yes.
So with the one-to-many, is that something people choose, or is that something that you sort of say this would be the best solution for this person, or how does that sort of work?
Both. um, it can be both. Sometimes we recommend people do individual as well as group, depending on their goals. So if they have a communication and a social goal, we would generally recommend group as part of their music therapy interventions. But if they also have like wanting to understand their emotions and expressing their emotions, that's generally done better in a one-on-one situation. So they might alternate between group and individual. We have a fair few clients that do that. Or if they've been doing individual for a long time and we feel like, well, we've achieved all the goals we set out to achieve, how about we explore group now as an option? So you can work on your behaviors, or we can work on your self-management, you can work on your communication with others in your peer group and creating those connections with similarly aged and able other kids and stuff. But yeah. And then in schools, we generally are in a group setting because we're seeing it up in the classes of up to 7.
Yeah, wow. So there's so many opportunities by the sounds of
Yeah.
a client to come in and get so much value and support around
Yeah.
this. And it's really interesting because I know we've had a bit of a chat about this in another group about this word. And this is what listeners, this is what I want you to understand. There's this word called therapy that quite often people go, ooh,
Ew.
you know,
Yeah.
ooh, that means there's something wrong with me. Really, in my opinion, therapy means how to get supported, helped, and loved and cared for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not a bad word, right?
No.
But I know a lot of people go, I don't want to see a psychologist. That sounds too scary. I don't want to see this person because that sounds too scary. So, how do you communicate to parents or whatever that this is actually therapeutic?
It for us is less of the therapy being an issue, more their expectations of it being a music lesson, that they're going to
Ah,
learn skills on an instrument and come out as a performer, and that's not the purpose. That might be something we achieve on the side by accident, but it's not the purpose. So that educating the clients as well as their carers and their parents and the providers as well, like planners and whatnot. Music therapy is there to achieve their personal goals. Um, it's hard, but yeah, we do have a few clients that are coming to music lessons, and their parents are like, "Don't tell them it's music therapy." So yes, we do get a little bit of that, but it tends to be coming from the parents' side rather than the client side, because we have signage on the walls and we have pamphlets out so that they can read that they're at music therapy, and they don't have an issue. It's a barrier with the parents and their understanding.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think this is really important. Is that listeners that um, getting especially kids on board, whether they're got social problems or not,
Mm.
getting help really, really early is really, really good for long-term connection. Because
Yeah.
as we've agreed, music connects us. It changes
Mm.
all the faculties in our brain to make us more unified and more connected with who we are. And
Mm.
if we're providing a resource for a young brain to be more electrified and opened up in a certain way, it can only be good.
Definitely. And we have that too. We have kids that come to us for early intervention, so like that preschool aged and then they'll take a break when they start primary school. But then sort of late primary school, when, you know, social stuff's coming up and hormones are kicking in, and they'll come back and they'll go for the group therapy at that point rather than the individual, because they're working on those social skills and the friendships and self-esteem.
Yeah, I love that. So when you're talking with people, do you are you basically working, are they talking to you about stuff that they don't necessarily talk to their parents and stuff around school? Do people open up?
Yes. Yeah. And they don't realize it a lot of the time. Yeah. Have a kid on the drum kit and all of a sudden it's like this verbal diarrhea of their life and what's going on and what they're thinking and feeling. And they don't even realize it's coming out, because as soon as they stop playing, like they shut up again, like into themselves, and then they start playing again. And you're like, yeah, let's keep going. And bleh, it just comes out. And it like opens the tap, and then you can have that conversation. But because we're also physically doing something else, or our hands are moving and engaged, like it's less confronting. It's not that just looking someone in the face talking to them.
Yeah, like we are.
Can be quite intense. Yeah.
Get away from me, Jason. So
Where's my instruments?
where are my instruments? Give me some. So
Yeah.
another question for you, Sarah. When we're looking at adults, so you have some adults that come in.
Yep.
What's the difference between us old boned people to the young people? Like, do we have more insecurities, like doing the stuff like as adults?
There's more layers. I have to control myself more. I can't be myself so much with adults, I find, because me personally, I come from quite a chaos area. I meet the client up in this chaos place and we come down together. Whereas some of our other therapists start in this really calm place and like welcoming them to like come join them. And that doesn't work for me. But I find the older clients tend to prefer that kind of approach where it's calm and chill, whereas there's chaos energy. So I have to rein myself in with adults, which is fine. It's a good practice for me to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's more layers, and there's more society expectations of how a conversation should go and how the give and take in a session is. It's less organic.
Yeah, it makes sense, isn't it? Because as adults, like if I was going to play the didgeridoo, right? I know I'm going to be self-conscious of playing that didgeridoo in front of you, Sarah, right?
Yeah.
Especially because I'm not really good with music.
Is that negativity straight away? Oh, I'm not very good at it. Oh, I don't know if I'll be any good. Oh, it'll probably sound terrible. Whereas the kids just give it a go.
Yeah.
They don't have that care yet.
Yeah. And it's funny, like where do you notice, like, because you've worked with that, the gradient of humans, where do you notice the difference where that self-conscious starts?
Mid-high school.
Yeah. Okay. It makes sense, doesn't it?
You notice friends, you notice other people judging you, and other people's expectations are put upon you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It tends to be where it comes out the most. And then you start working on the anxiety and those social issues and in the music, and how are you coping and how are you managing, if you're getting, a high heartbeat or you're breathing too fast, how can we use music in those moments? All right, can you withdraw yourself and put on your song and listen and be in that moment? The strategies, or using your poetry that you're writing anyway and turning it into composition and writing songs that you can share if you feel comfortable and safe to do so.
I love that. So it's really cool to actually see where we fall down. And I'm noticing this because I've got a 15-year-old, very self-conscious, right?
Yep.
And I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. My 7-year-old's just out there. And my son is just getting in that place where he's getting a little bit self-conscious of his body, and all sorts of things are going on for him already. And it's really interesting to see how our human psyches start to drop vulnerability and start to close down as adults. So in my opinion, I don't know whether you agree with me or not, I'm just going to throw it out there. I think we need to learn from the kids how to grow up, right? They have it better than us. They're less worried about things as they're younger, and they try things, as you said. And quite often we get scared. We go, I tried something once and I got laughed at. Yeah. So I don't want to try that again.
To actually make an achievement and try something new. Yeah, definitely. And I have that myself. Like, my preference of clients is children. And so that's who I generally work with for the most part. And then my psyche comes in when I'm working with people who are older than me. Like, who am I to be telling them what to do? Like, they have world experiences that I don't. Even though I have the expertise as a music therapist, my brain goes, yeah, nah. So that's something I have to work over when I'm working with clients that are older than me in general. And not everyone has that. Some people love working with like the older adults and get joy in it, and it's innate to them, whereas the children are innate to me. Like, I can just connect and I can be myself, and I can be in the session working towards their goals, thinking of the next thing, in the moment making music with them, as well as like monitoring, like that. I don't have to think about all those steps, whereas with an adult I do.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how we change our philosophy. And it might be because, that adult brain's going to judge us if we don't have it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is how adults work. We're a bit hopeless. We need to learn. I said this years and years ago, about 2000. I said we need to learn from the little people how to actually be big people. Try new things. Let go of what people think. Try to find our way through making mistakes, because they don't worry about mistakes. My son, I was getting nervous about going and doing my karate grading. I do karate, Sarah, and he called me out. He called me out for a bad attitude. I basically said, hey, hopefully I do okay in my grading. Hopefully I pass. And he said, Dad, that's a really bad attitude. You just show up and you'll be right. You'll pass. I'm like, so my son's giving me a little bit of a, here I am doing personal development for everyone, and the son's just going, come on, Dad, level up a little bit here. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because they're out there.
Positive self-talk, because then you'll achieve it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So it's really funny how we do these things. So around 14, 15 listeners, I want you to have a think about what happened in your world that stopped you from being you. And what Sarah does is actually help remind, especially kids, to be themselves, to be able to maybe hand that over, that baton over for a lot longer, because you're getting brain mechanisms. This is so essential, in my opinion, to getting the kids to be able to be more open to be themselves for a longer period of time, but to break that teenage barrier that stops us and closes us in. So when you've got that adult world, listeners, make sure you get help. And music therapy is a great opportunity. And if you are around the Gosford area, and also Sarah's business does it online, so if you are anywhere in Australia, jump in and come and find her and find out what she does and find out what music therapy can do for you. So Sarah, I really want to thank you for jumping on Uncovered today. Hopefully this adult didn't scare you today.
Not too badly.
Wasn't too bad. Is there any last things that you could give our listeners to share about music therapy, about what really matters?
Go make music in your life, include it and enjoy it.
And music is a big part of our lives, guys. So we've got to find out our why, where and what. And music therapy is such a great avenue to take. So thank you so much, Sarah, for jumping on Uncovered today.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate you, and we really appreciate your time, because time is so valuable. What we'd love you guys to do, if you like this podcast, if you could share it with your friends, and also our website address for the podcast is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. Our website is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademy.com. We have a free Facebook group called Wellness Leadership Evolution, so search for that. I'd love it if you could add me as a friend on Facebook. I don't buy it, so add me as a friend. And if you want some help and you would really like some support from us in the Academy, jump in. We have a process. You can do a break-in call to connect in with us. We do small courses. We have lots of things that we share. So we'd love the opportunity to give you a chance to change your life and turn it into a free one. You are one transformation away from change. Come and catch up.